Most founders sound exactly like the people they're trying to compete against. If you want to be competitive in a crowded market, you can't just be better, you have to be different. I'm your host, Cameron Olds.
And I'm Dallin Merrill. We're here to talk about how you can avoid being mistaken for your competition, differentiate your brand, and ultimately be the most exciting choice in the market.
Welcome to Differentiate or Die.
Join us today as we talk with Austin Larsen, a serial entrepreneur, founder, and one of our good mentors.
We'll talk about what it means for a company to differentiate itself in a crowded market and how you can actually go about doing that if you feel like you aren't differentiated, but you want to be. Alrighty, Austin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm good, man. Yeah, we're excited to talk to you today. Can you just introduce yourself? So you and I go not way back. I guess maybe you could say way back at this point. Does like 5 or 6 years count as way back now?
Yeah, that's pretty far. I mean, way back in corporate world, that's a long time. 5 or 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. I mean, tell us about where you've been in your career, maybe how you and I met, and some of the cool stuff you're doing now.
Yeah. So career-wise, have done quite a lot of different things under the sun. So I've from owning little like franchise restaurants up in Logan, Utah, to trying to start my own like little snack companies, to being in supply chain and international operations, to being in digital and running digital and IT for Young Living, where we met, I think I hired you to do some freelance video work for us early.
Yeah,
I got referred
exactly
to.
What it was.
I can't even remember if it was our mutual friend Prasad or someone else that referred. We needed a bunch of videos, and you were still at Utah State, and I was like, man, perfect. A cheap college student. Let's see, that's exactly what we needed. So,
and the rest is history.
Yeah, and then you did such a good job that we brought you on full time after school. So.
That was super. That was awesome. I remember those early days when it was you, me, and like the OG team of like Laura and Daria and Mike Nascimento and all these guys, or Micah as well.
Yeah, little hustlers trying to make stuff happen over there, right?
Yeah, those were the good days.
I'm really curious about your Logan restaurant business.
So I was previously married, and my former wife, she was from Logan, went to Utah State. Her family lived up there, and so, I grew up with an entrepreneurial family. My dad's, I don't think he's ever actually had a job. He's only owned companies. So I think it's just in my DNA somewhere to, for better or worse, honestly. But so I bought that pita pit up there by the campus, and I owned that for a few years back in, but that was like 17 years ago now. I'm way older than you guys.
Oh, wow.
Do you know if it's still there?
It's not there anymore. I sold it, and the other owner owned it for a while, but then, I don't think it's still there anymore. But yeah, it was fun. Like, it was like little pita. It was like a Subway, but for pita sandwiches. So it was a very trendy thing at the time. Like, it's one of those like fast, the franchise of the franchise. So, and I bought it from a previous owner, and it was kind of like this cultish thing up in Utah State.
Really?
And yeah, totally. And like, we would have booths at all the games and the basketball games and football games and stuff like that. And it did actually fairly well. But it was super trendy. Like, it was, when the trend kind of died out and stuff like it, I don't think it, sustained itself. But that was pretty cool at the time. Kind of a weird branding, like almost cartoonish. Like, it was like, you remember like the Monstars on Space Jam? It felt like they had like a lot of like vegetables that looked like Monstars, like on their. It was really weird, kind of that. But it had kind of that cult following of Utah State and all these, they had ends of the campus and stuff like that. So it was kind of fun in that regard.
And how long did you own it for? Like a few years?
No, yeah, just like 2 years. Yeah, it was. When me and my former wife, we split to be honest, didn't have a reason to go up to Logan too much. So also didn't want to own a business up there. So kind of both of those ended at the same time.
That's fair.
So I mean, you've done it all. You've been always in. I mean, you've done both the entrepreneurial route, obviously by watching your dad and owning your own business, but then also you've done the corporate route with me. Not with me. I did the corporate thing with you at Young Living, kind of running enterprise teams. So today's conversation probably is like second nature to you. I mean, I know it is because you and I always, like at Young Living, like at lunchtime, I honestly felt bad. Like I look back on it and I would haunt Austin's office at lunchtime. I would just like hover in his office just because we would have such interesting conversations to me about this stuff, about like differentiation and competitive advantage and how do you set up a company so that like it actually has a fighting chance to like do something and outlive itself. And so I feel a little bad because I'm sure you didn't get any work done because I was just constantly sitting in your office.
No, I mean, what do they say? Like if you learn the most by teaching. So, like I have launched many, many different brands for different companies, from energy drinks to supplement lines to supplements themselves to like popcorn and different things like that. So, I have been able to try a lot of different things. It's one thing to do it in practice and another thing to do it versus like the academic principles of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, it's fun to have done both, have it done on both sides.
So a topic of discussion we always have is like differentiation or competitive advantage. And I know those are, in my mind, those were two separate things and they are two separate things, but that's kind of where we wanted to start today was like, what does that really mean? Like if you wanted to differentiate yourself in a market, like what does that mean? And two, like how would you go about doing that if you were a business owner?
So let me start. I mean, that's a broad question. So let me see if I can kind of chop it up a little bit. I believe that differentiation leads to a competitive advantage, to your very first point. I do think they're very different things. One is more like a result of you being differentiated. Therefore, you have a competitive advantage in the marketplace. I've been lucky enough to have incredible mentors around me, very successful individuals around me, coaching me, mentoring me throughout my entire career. And so I want to give a quick shout out to Paul Gustafson. He's kind of like the guy who took me under his wing, when I was a young 21-year-old working in corporate and learned all about strategy development, and then how to take that strategy or that differentiation strategy and translate it into tasks and from the product side, from a marketing side or a demand side, and really create a true competitive advantage for a company. So you can kind of see the continuum going down that way. So you're asked the question of how does one create differentiation? Is that the question?
Yeah, like what does that even mean? So, I feel like most people who are business owners, maybe for the first time or maybe second time, like they hear that and I think they like subconsciously know that they want to be differentiated, but they wouldn't know how to do it themselves or really even what it means. So like, what does it mean?
Yeah. So in my opinion, being differentiated means that you have the opportunity to capture a market that's uncaptured, or to potentially steal market share from an established player in that segment that you're in. Otherwise, I don't really think you have a good justification to steal market share. Like if you're not differentiated, why would anyone switch? Like the old saying, like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just because you launch something that someone else is already successful with. I mean, remember, people vote with their wallet. So like, how are you going to change someone's vote if you're offering them the same thing? Like we got to give them something, either a feature or a benefit or some sort of differentiation that solves their needs better, so that it can then decide, oh, you know what? Instead of me voting with my wallet over here, I'm going to go vote with it on this new thing now.
Yeah, totally.
So,
I also think a lot about whether it's differentiation or being a competitive advantage versus being a gimmick. Like, are you actually like different, or are you just saying you are?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, because you're right. Like, so a great example of that is we live in Utah, and Utah's a hotbed for like supplement manufacturers, like supplement manufacturers. There's a dime a dozen. There's some regulatory reasons for that, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of this ecosystem of supplements and consumables and vitamins and things like that. This valley, this corridor is just fraught of all sorts of different companies. And so you see it in their marketing all the time, kind of gimmicky phrases that we've become accustomed to because we live here. But, a lot of them are saying the exact same thing about their product with a different logo on it, right? And frankly, a lot of them are the same manufacturer, just white labeled. So they really are kind of gimmicky. But yeah, so totally agree. I do think there's a significant difference between gimmicky and really being differentiated, but I don't think it's an investment factor. Like, I don't think it means, oh, you have to spend a fortune to be differentiated. I actually don't think that at all. I think you really there's a process of doing it. And that, that takes work. It's easier to just go copy.
That's a great point. Yeah. It feels like we see gimmicks all the time, just copycats. It becomes really hard to show how you're different. And a lot of that sometimes comes with product differentiation. You got to figure out how to make your product different. But in the end, it's all about, like you said, market, right? A lot of it comes from who is your market. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think of strategy. Can I jump into this? Like, there's a framework There's a framework that my mentor, Paul, shared with me, and it's really simple, honestly. Like, if anyone can take away anything from this podcast that I'm on, the only thing that really matters that I'm going to say probably is something I heard from someone else. So here it is. So he used a metaphor or analogy. I always get those two confused anyway. But think of like a Rubik's Cube. My little son plays with Rubik's Cubes all the time. And Rubik's Cubes have like all the sides, and then it's made up of a bunch of littler cubes, right? So he kind of calls it the strategy cube. So if you go to one of the corners on a Rubik's Cube, there's 3 sides or 3 planes that touch that corner. And so he said, if you think of it like this, one plane of the Rubik's Cube, or the strategy of Rubik's Cube that we're trying to create with a product would be, who are we talking to? Who is this flipping for, right? Like what are we doing this? What are we doing? And not just who, because that's more of a demographic question. He would always lean to like the old Clayton Christensen mantras of like, and what are they hiring something? What job are they hiring a thing to do for them? So like, for example, when I say job, it's like I need painting in my house, so I hire a painting to paint my house. So it's the target market is one plane of the Rubik's Cube. The second plane is product differentiation, and this is so broad, and this is where you get a lot of gimmicks that aren't true differentiation. But like I said before, product differentiation doesn't also have to be like, it doesn't need to be like so technologically advanced or sophisticated that the barrier of entry is too high. Like, I remember a great example in a book called Tuned In. They talk about, I think LG or Samsung, all they did was did a remote finder on their TV. Like, you press a button and it'd find, like beep your remote or something like that. And the sales went crazy because, it's actually not that technical. Like, you have all OLED TVs and screens like that. But what people really wanted is not to lose the remote very often. And then when they did, an easy way to find it. So like, they didn't come up with anything like whiz bang awesome or anything like that. It was like a flipping remote finder. That's it. Like, press a button, it would beep. Like, that was it. And then the sales went like crazy. So that was differentiation because they knew the target audience really well. So that's the 2 sides of the plane. You have target market, product differentiation. We can jump into product differentiation. That's a deep one. Then the third one is, how are you selling this thing? Like, how are you marketing it? So the the header of that would be channel. Like, what's the channel? And what I mean by channel, it could be, okay, we're going to go full online. We're going to go door knocking. We're going to go brick and mortar. We're going to try to get in these every single Costco in the country. We're going to do affiliate. We're going to do, partnership types of things. There's all sorts of different channels. And so any one of those being different, and any one of those can actually create differentiation enough for you to be successful. And you see it everywhere. So, this is a topic I love. I love your podcast, the title of it, Differentiate or Die. I fully believe it. I've seen lots of Me Too companies try to do something, and then maybe they didn't focus on one of those three planes well enough to be differentiated, and then they die. So,
yeah. Do you feel like a lot of companies overestimate how different they are?
Oh goodness. Oh yeah. I mean, and it's hard, right? Because it is kind of a chicken or an egg thing, right? Like having to figure out, am I really different? The only way to truly know that is know your audience, like who you're selling it to. That's the only way you truly know. What I see more though, Daryl, is this is my favorite, honestly. And 20 something years in corporate world, man, this is like nothing gets under my skin more than this. when they create a product, like some dude in a suit, or some executive or some owner has this idea for a product. And then they go to the product development team and they say, I want this exact thing developed. And they go develop that exact thing. And then they say, okay, we have this product now. Now let's go differentiate it. it's like the fourth step of the development process. And you're like, it's an impossible task, right? So it's like you're starting at the finish line and working your pieces on the Monopoly board back to the starting line. So it's kind of a fun thing.
Hopefully they have other products that are different before they try that out.
I mean, I see that all the time. Like so-and-so is doing this and they're doing it really well, so let's copy them and then let's figure out how to differentiate it. And so that's where you get all the gimmicky phrases of whatever, like no artificial dyes or something like that. Like they just come up with some word, right? Like,
yeah.
You and I had talked about how, so hang on. So you can do those three things, the cube, are kind of the core ingredients for how you might go about differentiating yourself, right? So you can differentiate yourself via your target audience, or you can differentiate yourself with your product or your sales channel. And one is good enough. Three, the more probably the wider and deeper your competitive mode is, if you could really dial in all three. But you're saying that one, if you can nail one pretty good, then that's usually good enough to give you a decent advantage in the market.
I mean, typically you have to know who your customer is first. So you got to have that one nailed. And then if you can get one more on the product or the channel side, you could be fine. But to your point, so just philosophically, I don't believe that being better is a strategy. I think being different is a strategy. So there's that I know that almost sounds like I'm splitting hairs on that to some people, but I don't believe in being better as a strategy. That's a recipe for fast failure and a lot of wasted investment. So,
I think we've put like 5 ad campaigns about that exact thing.
Yeah.
Don't be better, be different. It's like,
and I honestly think that came from Michael Porter. I think it's Michael Porter who wrote What is Strategy for Harvard Business Review, a very famous article. And that was kind of the primary point he was making. It's not about being better. It's about being different, but different for the sake of being different is also useless unless you know what you're solving for, right?
Yeah, totally.
I read recently,
it doesn't matter.
I read something recently that was talking about this topic of differentiation, and to someone that's like just new listening in, it's probably easy for them to think that I just have to be novel. I just have to have one different feature, or I have to, just something crazy different. But this article or this LinkedIn post rather was talking about how like you still have to like have utility. It's utility over novelty. But what I don't think what he was saying was you can't like don't be different. I think he's saying like different for the sake of being different is like whatever. Maybe that's a gimmick. Maybe not a gimmick.
No, I think you're right. So I mean the example, right? So I drive by this. I don't even know what they're called. Is it fast food? Maybe. Like every day. So my kids have played soccer. They're in dance. I have to drive by a Little Caesars every single day, all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like you guys are too young to know this, but Little Caesars was like nobody flipping went to Little Caesars. I mean, like growing up, like that was it was like the lowest of the low. And guess what? And so then they come out with this thing and talk about knowing your audience. So they come out with hot and ready drive-through for pizzas. Didn't change the pizza really, actually. The pizza's, it's nobody, they've never won an award, right? For their pizza. They've never won one. It's not the best pizza. It's just not, right? There's plenty. Like Dave Portnoy would say, this is not a great pizza, right? Like he would say, but so they have a very average product. It's not the best product. There's tons of pizza places way better. It's a very, it's probably lower end on the pizza scale. But what do they flip and nail? It's like busy parents they don't want to get out of their car. Their car full of kids. They're picking up, from practices, from school, from after things. And they just want to go through a drive-through and get a hot and ready pizza. I don't have to make dinner. There's no dishes. I pay by whatever, $5 or $7 or $10, whatever. And I can just pick it up. I'm done. Like I'm done with dinner for tonight. Like it's a smart, so talk about being different. They differentiate in channel, right? Their channel, how they delivered it. A drive-through of pizza didn't exist. That was only for hamburger places until Little Caesars did it. And it catapulted their sales, just drastic catapult. And they didn't change their product. Like they didn't come out with the best pizza sauce ever, right? They just figured out what are people really wanting. Versus your gimmick that you're talking about. Like someone could say like, well, we do 6 times more pepperoni than other places. Like, no, do people care about that? Like, I don't know. Probably not. But do they care about a drive-through? Absolutely they do.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really great example of differentiation, and not their product even. Like their product didn't change at all, just their messaging.
It might have gotten worse.
It might have gotten worse. There was another example that you and I would always talk about when you were teaching me the stuff during our lunch sessions at Young Living, and I think it was JetBlue. Competing against Delta and United and some of these international. Why? Because I think it's so just like how Little Caesars was a great illustration. JetBlue is also a really great illustration of this, of the cube of product, channel, and audience. How did JetBlue differentiate themselves? Because they were going up against Delta and some of these big meat-eating airlines, and they were just a little guy.
Well, I'll correct you real quick. It's Southwest.
Southwest.
So JetBlue has done some cool stuff. Needleman's done some interesting things. But Southwest there are some great case studies on Southwest. So Southwest came out with their thing called their 7 secret sauces. So I know we just talked about pizza. We're not talking about actual sauces. We're talking about like how do they create a competitive advantage in the marketplace? So walk that back. How do they have differentiated? So their thing was, who are we going after? So part of the cube, right? First plane of the cube. Who are we going after? We're going to go after low-cost travelers. Okay, low cost. It wasn't a demographic pick. It was saying who are we're gonna go appeal to people who, this is not business class, this is not luxury, this is not meals, this is not fancy. And back in the day, again, you guys are too young to this. Back in the day, like you'd get meals on airlines and stuff like that. And Southwest was like the pioneers of no meals, nothing fancy. You get a drink and some peanuts maybe. And so that was one of their secret sauces. Okay, we're going to go for the low-cost traveler. And in order to enable that, they had 7 different things to enable that to occur. So what do? So they said, we're going to fly only 737s, same plane. They don't have big ones, they don't have small ones. It's the same plane. Why? Is because they can, if everyone's trained on the same plane, all the maintenance crews, the cleaning crew, the stewardess or flight attendants, they're all trained across all their offerings. So that means they can turn planes faster. So they get 1 or 2 more flights in a day on the same utility, on the same vehicle. So therefore they can bring the cost down. No assigned seating, so they don't have first class, business class, all that stuff. It's a bus. It's a bus in the air, right? Like hop on, we're going. You pick your seat. Like there's nothing fancy on it. There's no meals, and so they're doing all these things to create a differentiation for the target market. And they did. They absolutely crushed it. They were super profitable for 40 something years and then they were only going to go to regional airports. They weren't going to go to LAX. They weren't going to go to O'Hare. They weren't going to go to JFK. They were going to like the small airports. So the fees weren't that high, right? Like these airport fees weren't that high. Again, trying to meet the target market where they are. And they drastically lowered the prices of an airfare. It became transportation, not like this luxury item.
So their whole thing was, so their target audience was budget travelers, people that don't want to spend an arm and a leg to just go to Cincinnati for a weekend. Who goes to Cincinnati for a weekend? Go to like San Diego for a weekend,
Right.
And then they built their product, and because they knew who their target audience was, because they knew that side of the cube, they were able to. Would it be accurate to say differentiate their product? Because like same aircraft, no assigned seating, and no meals on flights. Would that count as differentiating the product?
Yeah. So the primary understanding your audience and what they're truly wanting, like the mom at the Little Caesar wanting to drive through, or the cost-conscious traveler, and then that informs all of your development activities. Versus the example I said to you earlier, where you come up with a product,
right,
and then backtrack to figure out how to differentiate it. That's the exact opposite way of what you should do. So this is like, okay, we know who we're after. Nobody's targeting this market segment. The big players, they're all going after business traveler and these, the corporate travelers. Nobody's targeting just the airplane transportation, like low cost, like a bus like a bus flying in the air, right? Like, and so they understood their market and they reverse engineered how to make that happen. And that informed all their development and all their demand creation too. So it was like, that's how, because now they know who they're going to talk to and how they're going to talk about it, right? So you don't have to get as clever with your messaging and things like that, because you already know who you're talking to,
As we finish up here, we just wanted to ask if there's something that you would do, or if there's something founders should do this week if they feel like their brand is undifferentiated.
Ooh, it's a rough one.
Maybe restart.
That's restart. I mean, that's a tricky thing, right? Because sometimes they dig themselves a hole and they're trying to say like, hey, we have all this inventory, we have to figure out this, so they're in this deep hole because they haven't really differentiated to start with. I would always go back to the cube. It's an inevitability unless you're starting on solid footing. Everything else is going to be like pretty fluid after that, unless you're starting solid. So, if you're feeling like you're struggling and you're not getting the demand you think you want, or you probably really need to circle back and really understand your target market first. It's probably less about crafty, like you said, gimmicky, taglines like on a billboard. Like, it's probably less about that and a little bit more of how do I know my target audience very well? Like, do I really know them? Like, am I empathetic to them and their needs and what they're hiring my brand for? If you do know them, then you can extend yourself to the other aspects. Okay, is my product matching that to me, what they're hiring for? Am I in the wrong channel? Like, if I'm trying to do online sales, maybe I need to go put it in the local, mom and pop shops. So then, but always start with the who. Who are we targeting to? What are they hiring you for? And that should lead your pathway forward. I mean, there's been great products that just launched in the wrong channel. They were in the wrong channel, and they didn't have to go redesign. They didn't have to go re-engineer their product. They just changed the channel. I mean, Little Caesar. That's why I gave the example, right? They actually didn't go back and say nobody's buying or flipping pizza, because they weren't. It was like kind of a dying brand. Nobody was really buying it. And they didn't say, like, we got to go get the best chefs from Italy. That's not what they did. And they just said, like, we need to understand our market.
Yeah.
Like, and what are they really wanting? And guess what? They didn't really care, because it's for like 8-year-old kids between, practice and sports, or like school and sports. It's like, just get calories in their body. And the quickest way to do that is a drive-through.
Do you have any other examples of someone that maybe figured it out midstream, like Little Caesars?
Yeah, good question. Let me think. It's funny because I drive around and I look at all this all the time. Here's a recent example that I'm fascinated by. Do you have a second, or are we ending?
Yeah, no, this is great.
No, go.
Here's an example I'm fascinated about. And so again, this is Utah. So if you have out of state listeners, whatever, there's a brand that's up and coming, and I just think their strategy is completely brilliant. It's called Quick Quack Car Washes. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The owners are out of Folsom, California. So they're out of Sacramento area in California. I mean, if you haven't lived in Utah, there's a Quick Quack now. Like by my house, there's probably there's probably
like
15
chapels
within 5 square miles of my house. And I'm like, talk about, so here's what they do. It's like one of those drive-through car washes, right? It's not a franchise. They're all corporate owned. And you pay a subscription fee. I pay like whatever. They have like different tiers, like basic, medium, and large, whatever, or, premium, basic, and whatever. Subscriptions for my cars. And I can go whenever I want, and I can get a car wash. I just, drive through, and they have vacuums and stuff like that. And they weren't the first to do that. There's plenty of drive-through car washes, right?
No.
So how do they create a differentiation? They cornered the market, man. I mean, so what they did is they got a bunch of funding, which is not easy to do, and they picked certain zip codes.
Wow.
And certain zip codes based off of criteria, the discretionary income, household income, things like that, average sale. And they don't just go put one in the area. And I'll get to why that's important. They go and like monopolize the entire area, and they crowd out. And so by doing that, and their business model is a subscription. So if I go sign up for Quick Quack Car Wash, guess where I'm not going to go get my car wash next time? The place that I don't have a subscription for, because I've already prepaid over here.
Right.
So by doing it, they corner the entire market. So it's like blocking and tackling at the same time. So they, and why would I sign up for any other car wash program? Or because there's 15 of them by my house.
Right. Yeah.
These one-off car washes just can't compete. They can't hang, right? Because I have a whole network I've tapped into now. And so it's like you see these other car washes that are just one-offs, and they're dying on the vine because they just can't compete. They didn't invent the car wash. They didn't invent the drive-through car wash, but they had a unique strategy to say, okay, most people travel within like 10 square miles of their house. So they pick zip codes, and they just litter the place with car washes. There's so many, they block out all the competition. Like it's like this mini monopolies is what they've created of car washes. And I'm like, this is kind of brilliant, honestly. Like there's no chance a competitor could even enter the market space.
There's
So
just
I'm like,
not
that's
enough
kind of
room.
brilliant. There's
There's
just
literally
it's
not enough
like,
room.
like you'd have to go launch 15 more, and then there's like diminishing returns on that. So like, it's like, I'm like, man, it's kind of a brilliant strategy. Like, um,
To bring it
but
back to the cube, so would you say that that was them playing the channel game? They knew that the way that they were going to service all of this, it was just, hey, we're going to pick different zip codes, and we're just going to crowd out these zip codes, and because the product's not different, because it's on the outside, it's like every other car wash. They have like the vacuums outside. You
yeah,
go
it's kind
through,
of
you pick.
it's kind of like the Apple version of car washes, right? Like, why would I switch my Apple devices? Because my phone and my laptop and my watch are all Apple. I'm not going to go get a Samsung, like, whatever, because it doesn't sync with everything else. It's kind of the same version with car washes. I've just crowded everything else out. Like, I'm not going to get a different car wash. I'm already part of this network. So they really understood remember, start with the human, start with the person. They pick the demographic. They very much pick household income, newness of homes. So they're very strategic of where they're going to just go. What's that called when you just like flyer the town? Like they do it for like elections. They just like anyway.
Oh, like paper the town or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Canvas,
Just paper,
canvas the town.
canvas the town. Yeah, they canvas these little zip codes. They've picked the right zip code, so they know exactly who they're targeting. So that's the first thing. They unfortunately they're just in very specific target markets, and they go pick the zip codes, and then they just go canvas that zip code with car washes. And so, and they know their price points and all that stuff, what people are willing to pay. But they just canvas, and by doing so, they just create like almost an invisible wall around that zip code. Like nobody else can get in. They've already owned the market. They just do that micro, and they've just been rinsing and repeating that for every little, like the zip code.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Freaking brilliant.
It is brilliant, and they're making a flippin' fortune. Like I know who they are. Like it's working. It's working.
That's super helpful because I think most founders that are wanting to start things, they feel like the burden is to completely reinvent the wheel or invent a new wheel. When really you're kind of playing three-dimensional chess. You're not just playing the product game. You're also playing channel. You're also playing target audience. And if you can nail something with those other two, then you can, they didn't invent the car wash, but man, is it working? Because they had that other strategy.
Yeah, everyone thinks they need this big old global brand. Like I saw some guys in my neighborhood recently, and I loved it. And I was like, people will sell lemonade, kids will sell lemonade on the street, and talk about not being differentiated, right? And I'm like, everyone's selling lemonade, and these guys are cleaning out garbage cans. I'm like, way better business model. But you don't have to have this big company. They're crushing it. These like high school kids, instead of selling lemonade or whatever, they charge $15 to go clean out garbage cans. I'm like, they don't have a lot of competition in this small defined area. They don't need to have a big global brand. They're killing it. Like they're absolutely crushing it, just by differentiating in a very narrow market segment.
How would you make sure that you have enough, enough market size to actually have a profitable business? Like, because you always hear niches make riches, but
Yeah.
I've also like just in my own, just with Protagonist, I'm like, oh, like I feel like we're trying to niche down, but as we niche down, are we shrinking the market? Are we shrinking earning potential?
I mean, it depends on the level of investment in your development of things. So it's going to be tricky for Tesla or Apple they have so much invested. They have to sell a large scale for their investment to have an ROI. Like
Right.
NVIDIA, they're investing billions and billions of dollars. So you have to have a high enough market scale to make that ROI. So if your level of investment's not a ton, then you obviously don't need that much to have a super successful ROI. So
Right.
I think Bill Dyer wrote a book called Nail It and Scale It. So the test of all of this is nail it and scale it. Like once you really have a proven model in a smaller market segment, then it's just scale is the next thing, right? But if you can already get some demand for your thing in a very small marketplace, then it probably justifies a much larger marketplace. But it typically grows into that. It's not going to just very rarely do you see like these overnight successes that just have total market domination overnight.
Austin, this has been so much, well, one, so much fun because I feel like I'm back at Young Living in your office having these chats. And then two, it's just fun because I think it's such an interesting topic and one that many people struggle with and you know, don't quite know how to work their way out of it. So all of this has been super, super valuable. Thank you so much for giving us your wisdom.
Of course, yeah. No, it's a fun topic for sure.
Yeah, thanks so much.